Welcome, welcome, welcome. How is everybody doing? It's May 13th, 2026. This is the RambleCast. I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me I have Corbin Davenport.
Hello.
So, IO ish things happened. Pre IO thing, sort of thing. Um, it was, uh, it was the IO edition of the Android show, which is Google's low key way of saying, we're not going to talk about Android that much this year, thanks. But we'll throw this one to you anyway.
Yeah, because they did this. I don't know when this started. I don't know if it was last year or before that. Um, but this has been the strategy for a while is breaking out all of the Android announcements into its own day so then the main day can be AI.
Yeah,
But this was also a lot of AI, so I don't know if, you know, I don't know what we're getting out of this necessarily, but whatever.
I maybe this is cynical, but how would it not be? Um, but I kind of feel like the reasoning, the logic, the strategy here is that there are too many Android enthusiasts to just completely like shove them to the side and say we don't care about you anymore. We're just going to do AI. Um, so they don't want to anger the enthusiasts. They don't want it to look like Android is dead to them, which it's obviously not, you know. But at the same time, like they know that all eyes are going to be on them for AI, so to speak, or they want all eyes on them for AI. So that's where the focus is going to be. That's where the investment matters, or rather, that's where the investors are watching. So yeah, this is definitely like Android is no longer their top concern for like the publicity aspect. Uh,
Well, there's this show and then main IO show is next week on the which day? I know that the live stream we'll do is on the 20th. Is the actual event earlier?
I actually don't remember.
Google
Um,
I/O day.
yeah, you'd think we
Oh,
would have checked, but
May 19th to 20th. Yeah, so I believe the main
okay.
event would be on the 19th. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely will be. That's good. That'll give me time to actually
Hov-
watch it.
Hovering nearby my birthday as usual.
Um, so yeah, this was certainly an event. I right off the gate or right off the bat, I want to say one thing. I want to thank Sundar. You're not going to hear me say that often. I want to thank Sundar because he gave me the thing I wanted from him most. Less of him. He I didn't clock it, but I think he had maybe a grand total of what 3 minutes of screen time. I'm not sure it was even that long. Like he basically just showed up, first face in there, says hi, uh, basically proceeds to say, yeah, we've got a lot to announce and it's gonna be great and blah blah blah. And then he just kicks it to Samir, and I don't think we see Sundar again. So thank you,
Mhm.
Sundar. Look, it's nothing personal. Like I, this has nothing to do with anything else. I just don't think Sundar is a great presenter.
Yeah, he doesn't have the juice,
Right.
unfortunately, which most tech CEOs don't. So I don't, they all want to be Steve Jobs. Unfortunately, most of them are not.
Right.
Um, and all these companies have other executives and presenters that are just better at that, and they probably should just let them do their thing.
Yeah.
So works out for everyone.
Yeah.
Austin said Sundar didn't even show up to the last one. Okay, yeah, I don't know if I've watched any of these Android shows in their entirety. I didn't watch the one this week because I was already. I think I don't know what time it was at, but I was having a lot of work distractions, so I was trying not to intentionally add more distractions. So I was reading all of the blog posts afterwards. Um, but I guess we can get into it. And the first thing, I guess the biggest thing is the Google Books, which I'm gonna immediately make my opinion clear on this. Bad name,
Oh,
bad name.
yes, yes.
You messed it up. I'm sorry. That's too many syllables. It sounds silly. I mean, Chromebook also sounded a little bit silly at first, but we're all used to it now, and that is one fewer syllable. Um,
Well,
so
the problem is they already ruined the branding that would have been great. Pixelbook. Pixelbook was that there was something about that branding that sounded nice. It rolled off the tongue reasonably well.
well,
And
there might be a Pixel book. Again, you know, we don't know. The Google book is like just the name of this platform. So, you know, you're gonna have your Asus Google Books and your Lenovo Google Books and whatnot. So there could be a Pixel book that's a Google book.
that's
But
fair. But
regardless, the name is dumb. We don't need to be doing this. You could I think like I don't know if I don't know why they just didn't go with Android on laptops. Maybe that has a more negative connotation of like, oh, it's just a phone laptop, or
um
it's, but I don't know.
I'm going to predict right now they couldn't have or rather wouldn't have done that because Android on laptops is sort of what actually I now as I'm thinking about it, there are a lot of reasons they wouldn't have done that. The first one is they just don't use Android as a like in front branding anymore. People
Sure.
know that things are Android, and obviously like they called this the Android show and blah blah blah, but they're not really using the Android brand as like a consumer facing thing at this stage. So I, with the notable exception of Android XR, but I even then I feel like that's something that they're using right now, and it will eventually get like rebranded away. Um, but yeah, Android's kind of a name that they're reserving more for the enthusiast crowd and not the like mainstream audience. Um, Another reason I think they just don't want to say Android for laptops or on laptops or whatever, besides the fact that that's just a lot of words for something. Um, I think it's also they don't want to. I think they don't want to limit it to laptops because you know you could have tablets, all-in-ones, desktops, etc., etc. Um, and who knows if laptops will even still be a popular form factor in say a decade or whatever. Uh, so
Google's not thinking that far ahead. We know this. They're
obviously,
they're not. They've given up on tablets like 5 times. I don't. They're not in this for the long run.
5 times, or I thought we were in the double digits by now. And to be fair, they've given up on Android tablets several times. They really haven't given up on iPads.
No,
iPad's
they've
still
got
a top
maps.
tier priority for them, but
Yeah. So basically, the Google book is the finished evolution of Android on laptop form factors. So they said they were doing this last year. We've seen it slowly come together. Every release of Android has like the slightly better tablet interface or like desktop interface, um, to the point where there's like a taskbar and like better multi-window stuff now and all these other bits. So all of it comes together now as this platform intended for laptops, which is kind of replacing Chrome OS, but we'll get to that a little bit later. It's That's unclear, but basically this is just like their like premium like desktop OS thing moving forward. This is if you have your Pixel phone and you want a laptop to go with it, here you go. You know, this is their their desktop platform moving forward. So it's basically Android. It's built on Android. You know, it looks a lot like the current multi-window interface in Android or the desktop mode if you plug a Pixel phone into an external display or TV. Um, but it has a few more features that they've called out in this announcement. The main one is just more Gemini stuff, as is expected. They're very proud of this feature where if you like wiggle the mouse, it will bring up a contextual menu. So like basically instead of assigning Gemini to like a right click or like a menu option in a right click menu, they've moved that to this wiggle motion. And they say we're changing mouse interactions with Magic Pointer on Google Book, a feature we built with the Google DeepMind team that brings Gemini's helpfulness right to your fingertips quite literally. Just wiggle your cursor and watch it come alive with Gemini, offering quick contextual suggestions every time you point at something on your screen. Point at a date in an email to set up a meeting, or select two images like your living room and a new couch to instantly visualize them together. So again, just the normal like what's on my screen AI features that is in a bunch of places now, but with a slightly different uh, activation method, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So I hate this. I hate this on so many levels. It, and admittedly, part of this, or part of my feeling of hating this, kind of comes from the way it was introduced for the during the presentation, because they started off with a guy saying, there hasn't been uh, really any big change to the cursor since right click was made into a thing. And the moment I heard that, my immediate thought is, oh, this is a backhanded comment about Apple. And as I thought a little more about it, it's like, wait, is it? Or does this guy just genuinely not know any history? Like, is he actually just naive? Either one is not a good answer. It's kind of a bad thing. And so I was already instantly like, yeah, I kind of don't like their introduction of this. But to make jiggling the mouse your thing, first off, this is already something on Mac OS. So anyone who's ever used Mac OS you already know, like, if you just jiggle your mouse a bit, it causes the mouse pointer to go super large, so you can find it on screen if you were having trouble finding it before. I immediately look at this and I think, oh, isn't this also going to be a accessibility issue? Because there are people, I've literally worked with people in the past who, they don't have, like, their hand has tremors or shakes. They're literally going to be unintentionally activating this all the time. This is actually going to be a real problem.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, I would assume there's like a switch for that somewhere. It
oh,
would
there's
be
gotta
weird if
be.
there wasn't, but
But then
yeah,
are you completely disabling the feature?
I mean, again, this is just like a different interaction method for all of the what's on my
Right.
screen thing. So like there's got to be like a button you click and it brings up the same like overlay.
I'm sure there is, but
Um
my point is more that they're trying to hinge so much on this magic pointer thing that is activated by jiggling the mouse. I think that that's possibly one of the worst interactions they could have chosen, because it's going to it's going to conflict with what a lot of people are already used to using. And again, it's a usability feature. Like, if you're going to spend so much time presenting this, you probably should have picked something that was a little bit less prone to trouble, let's say.
and there's already there's already a Gemini button, I think, on Chromebook keyboards. Like that's already a thing on the newer ones.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that activates the same thing. So is this just another slightly more invasive way of activating the same thing? Because I know like Google Docs has this issue now where like really there's like five different ways to open Gemini and they keep like adding, you know, ones that are slightly more in your face to like nudge you into doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you know, really uh a lot of software is like that now. So I don't know. It's pretty silly. Um I don't I don't know. I've not ever extensively used these like do things with my screen contents. Um except like there were times where it was useful, especially like pre like back when Android had like the initial versions of I forgot what it was called, but there was something on Android phones. I want to say around like Lollipop or Marshmallow, where it could scan your screen and you could select text in the like recents apps menu and like make calendar events from dates or like search an image or something. So like in those contexts, like this is kind of useful, but um, I don't really care to use it on desktop necessarily. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. Also, because none of this is like built into my Mac, and I don't really want to install like a Chat GPT desktop app
Mm-hmm.
to do this kind of stuff. So that's part of the issue. I
Yeah.
also don't want to install Gemini.
Um. So okay. All things being equal, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having this. I just it's more just the way that they're the interaction model that they're sort of creating
Yeah.
leaves me thinking, yeah, you just could have done better with it. But that may just be the window dressing and kind of a version 1 attempt at this. So, I'm not going to be too hypercritical about it. I just think that they they're not really motivating or compelling me off of this particular aspect of it. Um let's see. The Google Book itself, obviously, it is an Android desktop, which need I say the obvious? They're basically, to me, I read this as Chrome OS is got a ticking clock on it.
Well, I guess I can mention this. They like talked a little bit about Chromebooks. They mentioned that. Oh, is this another? Okay, here it is. It's on a different. Oh, so I'll put this as another link in the notes. That's the one that's linked to in that 9 to 5 article. But they posted another thing that's basically like, please don't freak out. We're not killing Chrome OS. And they mentioned that Chromebooks remain a reliable long term investment. You can continue to confidently purchase and deploy them to your businesses and schools. You can continue to expect 10 years of automatic updates, consistent management, and when the time comes, we'll provide multiple pathways to transition over to the new experience. So,
Yeah, that's
I,
literally a ticking clock.
yeah, so like it seems like probably I'm sure this Chromebook's still in the. I'm sure this is again like when Apple shifted to their chipsets. Like there's going to be Chromebooks that are still in R&D right now, and those will come out. Maybe it'll continue to stick around like in some form. Like every OEM will have like a Chromebook, you know, or something. But most of them will shift over to this new Google Book platform. Not really sure. Not clear. Also, not clear is if there will be any pathway from Chrome OS Flex, which is that version that you can install on a normal PC, which was, I think it was called Cloud Ready initially, and then Google bought it. And it's a kind of a useful tool for like schools and businesses that want Chromebook fleets, but don't necessarily want to buy new hardware. Google hasn't said anything about, to my knowledge, they've not said anything about Google Book being a like normal operating system you can install. And until they say otherwise, my assumption is that that will not happen because this is very baked into like Android and like Google services. And Chrome OS Flex is not, it does not have Android app support. So unless they say otherwise, I'm going to assume that Google Books are just not coming to normal computers. Like that's just going to be a, it's going to be like a Google services Android device where it's not really supposed to be something you install on existing hardware. Um,
I would compare that to probably something along the lines of like Wear OS, where strictly speaking, the the pieces that make up the quote unquote operating system, those are there. Like anyone can do whatever they want with those. But all of the things that make it useful and interesting, all that stuff is going to be basically like for Google, Google's partners, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll probably, since there's obviously going to be like drivers that are custom to the hardware and things like that, I have a feeling, yeah, this is going to be one of those things where you basically can't do anything with non hardware, and that same hardware probably isn't going to have much of a path away from being a Google book.
yeah, yeah. Like there's probably not going to be like an ISO. You download like a Linux distro to make something a Google book. But um, yeah. So besides the Gemini stuff, they shut off like a little bit of like desktop widgets and the ability to make a widget with their AI thing and like screen mirroring from another Android phone if you have one. And their some preview of the hardware. And they mentioned that like all the Google Books will have a glow bar that looks a bit like the earlier Chromebook Pixel light bar. Um, and that's really it. There's still not a lot of information. They say like there'll be some devices coming this fall. So I wrote a blog post about this like I think in February, where I was basically just saying like I don't think this is going to be a. I'm not convinced that this will be good. I think like Chrome OS in its current form has a lot of issues. I had Chromebooks for a long time. They got really annoying for me. In their current state, they're like just really bad. I feel like for usability, where your apps are spread across like three different platforms. You've got like desktop Chrome, and then an entire Android VM, and then maybe an entire Linux VM. And it's difficult to get all those things to work together in a way that's useful. And kind of all the advantages have gone away to the point where really the advantage to a Chromebook is like you're less likely to get malware than a Windows laptop, but still not entirely unlikely because it's Android and it has the Play Store. And we know Google has let in some riffraff from time to time, or you can sideload an APK and do it yourself. And this is none of that really changes, even though like the platform's changing now. It's just built on Android. We've eliminated the what little remains of the Chrome OS desktop Chrome layer. It's still now your primary interaction method is a bunch of apps designed primarily for touchscreen phones on a device with a trackpad and keyboard and multi-window attached on. And in theory, Android is supposed to work well on this platform and this form factor, but like it never really has. It just feels weird. A lot of apps are just designed to run on a phone, and when you put them on something else, whether that's an Android tablet or a desktop computer or something, they just look and feel weird.
Well, if
Um,
if you listen to everything they've said, obviously all apps are now completely oh, suddenly I'm blanking on the word. But all apps are supposed to be completely dynamic and portable, and if you put them
yeah,
on a tablet, they're gonna look great and work perfectly. Ha ha ha. Uh, I mean, that's a
yeah.
nice narrative, but it's completely untrue.
And I said this in the blog post I wrote a couple months ago, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If anyone, I feel like no one's going to make this argument anymore, but I'm going to preemptively warn you. If someone tries to make the argument of like, well, it's now that there's going to be this new premium, Google Book experience, there's going to be a push for Android apps that work well in this form factor, right? No, no, there's not. I could because it happened every single like that's what people said when Chromebooks got Play Store apps, and now like Android apps are the main software platform for Chromebooks. You're supposed to use the Chrome browser, and then everything else is an Android app. And the Android apps on there are still not very good. They're still weird. There's still a lot of apps that do not have layouts for phones, and Google, most of Google's apps didn't until a couple of years ago, like well into the Chromebook Play Store,
Mm-hmm.
and that was mostly motivated by folding phones. That stuff Google did so that like the Galaxy Z Fold and those kinds of phones would have, uh, you know, when you stretch an app across the internal screen, it would work well. So I'm sure there's going to be like a couple more apps that look fine on larger screen when you stretch them out, but it's still going to be the majority of apps are built for phones because that's what you're doing. If you're making an Android app, you're building something with the intention of running it on the thousands of Android phones that are out in the wild.
And I would add that even folding phones, which at one point that was supposed to be the new motivator for making, oh, every app should obviously be flexible enough that it'll look good on a phone and on a folding phone. Please, everyone, make apps for folding phones, which sure kind of helped, but again, first off, I think the way a lot of people are using folding phones, I think it's a lot of apps side by side, not necessarily people going full screen with a single app. Um, and when that happens, you basically have two phone interface apps side by side. Like that, you're not really any different than using a regular phone. Um, or they're using it as like the phone interface on one side and then a keyboard on the other kind of thing or whatever. Like every time I see somebody with a folding phone, which admittedly still isn't very often, they're not really, I don't see them using like full screen apps or using their apps full screen. Unless it's a browser, which, come on, that's not even really the same discussion. So yeah, I
And
don't, every single thing that's supposed to be there, this will finally get developers to care about larger screen interfaces. Every single one has kind of like it sounds good for a minute, and then you see the actual outcome, and obviously no one's doing it.
and like
At
again,
least not in
maybe
large scale.
I'm sure this is a thing that a lot of people don't care about. Is like just like maybe a lot of people do want like, especially younger people growing up only using phones, a computer that works exactly like your phone might be fine. But for me, it always feels weird. It's like it reminds me of when like websites were built with Adobe Flash, and it was all just kind of very weird feeling. And Austin said the MacBook Neo will destroy this in performance and productivity. Yeah, like I mean, I know not everyone, Mac OS is not everyone's cup of tea, but like that's an actual desktop operating system, and it's got a terminal, and you can, install a bunch of actual desktop apps on this. I know there's supposed to be a Linux VM on Android that will presumably be hooked into this, but best case scenario that works as well as the Linux layer on Chrome OS, which was not perfect. Um, so I don't know how that shakes out because again, we still don't really have that many details yet. They just showed off like a couple of the Gemini features and some screenshots and a few sneak peeks of the hardware. And so we're just going off the assumption that everything else works like the Android desktop mode that they've showed off before because it's very clearly based on that work.
So, in I this isn't really a defense, but I guess I think it's worth acknowledging that this was more about showing off the platform. I think I have to kind of I'm kind of stepping out on a bit of a branch with this one, but as far as I can tell, this was really more about showing off the software platform and not showing off the hardware. They just showed off hardware, I think, so that they could have literally just hardware to intersperse.
Right.
Because obviously they're going to have other partners producing Google Books. So we know that. They mentioned Acer, Asus, Dell, HP, and Lenovo. Presumably, maybe some others will pop up. Uh, Samsung is obviously in that list because it's going to be Google and Samsung releasing the first models, or model or whatever. Um, so from that perspective, it doesn't make sense to give out any sort of specs. Like in theory, I guess they could give out minimum specs, but that doesn't really mean anything because we don't know how well the software is going to run on it, and we don't really know too much about like what the reference platform is going to look like. So, you know, it any specs they could give would be mostly meaningless right now. The one thing that they did say, which I'm going to call out kind of the vagary of it, but they said that Google would be releasing uh, a premium model or device or whatever. Um, and in fact, right here, they even say every Google book will be built with premium craftsmanship and materials. I'm going to assert that they're not talking about specs. They're talking about every model will be like aluminum, or everyone is going to have uh, some sort of basic quality standard that has very little to do with actual specs and more to do with, does it feel good, does it look nice, does it have certain qualities to them, etc., etc. And um I don't I don't know that that really equates to like good specs or good hardware. It just means something will feel like and look like a nice product. Okay,
Well,
Austin's saying a lot, so I'm gonna try to read this. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say.
yeah. Well, I was he mentioned that Google and Samsung aren't on the list, and yeah, Samsung's not mentioned in this blog post. So unless something got said in the video,
It
then
absolutely
Samsung's
was
not.
said. Yeah, no,
Okay.
no, no. It was definitely said in the live stream. They very clearly spell out Google and Samsung are going to be releasing first, and then other partners come later.
Okay.
Um, unless I completely misunderstood what they said. I look, I admit I there were a few spots during this presentation I kind of phased out. Uh, okay, well, hold on, I'm gonna pull up the transcript because I'm pretty confident that's one of the few things that I heard them say. Um,
I will also say Austin preempted me in talking about the software and like yeah, I didn't need like hardware information for laptops coming out in 8 months out of this. I just think it's really weird that they announced this platform and they were like, it's Android with these handful of Gemini features, and then that's it. Right? Like we didn't. It would have been better, like you said, to I don't know, talk about like if there are more apps optimized for this, or again, like all the stuff I brought up of like, is this an OS you can install on other things, or where's the Android VM? I don't think I'm not sure if we still know how Chrome works on this. Like I know Google has been porting over like some interface elements from desktop Chrome to the Android browser in anticipation of these devices and having a Chrome that looks more like Chrome on desktop. But I don't think we know if like extensions are coming to the Android browser at all. So that would be a pretty big issue. Um, and I think it's just weird to say they're doing this, and it's like, oh, it's Android and that's it. Um, just very very weird way to go about this. I feel like, um, and trying to see what else. Um,
Okay, I'm looking through the transcript. I've tried searching for Samsung, and it only shows up 3 times. None of them specifically related to Google Book. But then I search for other terms that should be dead giveaways, and I'm seeing how much their automatic transcription just completely butchered some of the stuff that they said. So I'm not sure how reliable it is searching for text.
hmm,
Um, okay,
okay.
so I don't know. I'm pretty sure I heard them mention Samsung, but I'll concede maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe that was one of the things that Qualcomm searching for the name Qualcomm turns up literally nothing in this transcript. So I don't know. I don't think it was Qualcomm though.
So yeah, I
Also, there is not that this is super important, and I'm sure completely irrelevant to anything, but notably separate from the live stream, or well, the pre-recorded live stream, they did confirm that Intel is also going to be building Google Book or building hardware for Google Books. So that's a thing that has also come out, which I I think we could probably turn into a whole topic by itself, but I'm just going to summarize my loose opinion on that. Let's be honest, that was a thing that politics is playing into far more than anything else. I don't think Google even would want to work with Intel on that, but in the name of appeasing other political elements, I'm sure they're doing a friendly thing for Intel, letting them have an opportunity to play in this pool.
I'll yeah. So my opinion remains unchanged from before they said anything this month, which is that I wouldn't recommend these to anyone. I this is not like a computing experience that I think I would want to use. And I wouldn't probably wouldn't tell anyone else to. I think there's the MacBook Neo. I think uh, depending on what you can get away with, I really Chromebooks always occupied that space of like this computer is easier to give someone who is less tech experienced. It's more difficult to get malware on that than like a Windows PC. But honestly, I think if I'm getting a computer for like a child or a grandma or someone, you could do a MacBook Neo. You could also just do a normal PC laptop with like Fedora Silverblue or something, like all of these Linux distributions that are set up to be like the atomic distros where like they work exactly like Chrome OS and Android where you cannot touch the system. So like you cannot destroy those because everything's fully containerized. So the Linux ecosystem caught up to that. So if you can find a PC that works okay with Linux and just put that on there, that's probably fine. I'd feel comfortable giving that to anyone. Um,
I'm I'm gonna go on a little bit friendlier of a take for this, which is day one. The only group I would say I can see recommending this to is literally full time Android app developers. Because having a platform to develop on where you can run the app on the same platform without using any sort of emulator or any of the things that we've been using for years to build apps may have some advantages. Um, and especially if you're going to be doing like let's say you're hypothetically that one of those rare developers that actually does care about large screen experiences with your app, then you definitely want to have something like this to test on. So this is probably going to become the best place to do that. I know Chromebooks technically were an option. Great, fine. Uh, and arguably, maybe there's still some okay way to do that with Windows, though I think they ripped all that stuff out. So, you know, just it's a narrow audience, but I think Android developers, sure, I could see recommending this to them. Um, Otherwise, I think as a first generation release, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I wouldn't rule it out once they've had a little more time to flesh it out. Obviously, enthusiasts and uh, enthusiasts are going to be a little bit different in this case, but I think that's about it. I will briefly also acknowledge the possibility that people who have only grown up on their phones might appreciate this more than Windows or Mac OS. That remains to be seen, though. It sounds like that's one of those things. I don't think any of us can really judge that very well because we all grew up on desktop computers, desktops, laptops, whatever. So for us, we're used to those paradigms. We're used to that user experience and how everything works in that space. And separately, we also have smartphones that we're used to those, but the two don't cross over for us. Not purely at least. Whereas I think if you're the type of if you grew up never really using Mac OS or Windows for whatever reason, and a phone is basically your whole computing experience up to this point, or most of it, I could see looking at this and going, hey, I already understand everything about this. I already know everything. I've got reflexes built around how this stuff works. Maybe in that case, you look at this and go, yeah, this is actually the tool I want because it's just taking that phone knowledge that I already have and the reflexes that I built up and just applying it to a larger screen with a built-in keyboard, trackpad, etc., etc. So maybe I I don't want to rule it out. I think there's some validity to that theory. I just don't know if it actually translates. Like one or if the implementation will play that way.
Yeah, I don't. It's just not. It's not appealing to me whatsoever, and I don't really like. Again, it's inheriting all of the limitations of Android as far as we know, because they've not said otherwise. So, presumably, super lockdown maybe doesn't have an unlockable bootloader. It probably has a fixed software support lifetime that might be worse than Chromebooks. We don't know because on the highest end Pixel and Samsung devices right now are pushing like 7 years, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and Chromebooks are currently at 10, and that's already not great.
Yeah.
Especially because they don't have any, the modern ones cannot really be unlocked. So if your laptop happens to survive longer than that, or you just bought it late because the timer starts when the laptop was introduced or the hardware platform, uh, then you're just out of luck. You're going to have 0 days to deal with. Um, so yeah, it's not. There's nothing appealing here for me, and I feel like again, like if your kid needs a computer with a web browser and some basic apps, MacBook or a Linux distro that is built to be more robust. Don't give them Arch Linux or like Ubuntu or something, but like there's other things you can do. We have tools for this now. Um, So
Okay,
or
so
just a Windows PC and like set it up for them and make sure to put put remote desktop software on there so when they get confused you can remote in and help, and any of those options are preferable.
I also really this is a weird tangent, but I also briefly want to discuss the glow bar because I am confused by this. Is this functional? They during the presentation they made it look like the glow bar could like at least they didn't show it happening in real hardware. This was just like an animation, but it made it
Hmm.
look like the glow bar could at least fill up. So maybe it could be like a battery indicator. I'm curious, does the glow bar is it just like the fixed set of colors, or can it change colors? Can it be animated? Can it do anything? Does it have a function behind it, or is it just a cosmetic thing that is apparently going to be in every Google book regardless of who makes it? uh
It only works with
yeah,
full RGB during June.
that actually
Yeah,
would be kind of funny. um I
should have been called the Gay Book.
oh um
That's still better. It's still better than Google Book.
kind of, yeah, actually.
Yeah,
um
I'd forgive them a little bit if they made it like exactly like the LED indicator on Android phones like a decade ago, and you can make it different colors or
mhm.
different patterns or something. I'll give them a little bit of leeway if they do that, but I don't even think they're cool enough to do that.
Well, and this is based on, I believe it was the original Pixel book that had this. Or no, sorry, it wasn't even Pixel book at the time, was it?
It's the Chromebook Pixel, I
Yeah,
think.
maybe. Whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the original name was, but whatever that original laptop was, it's based on that. And I know several people who are, I'm sure, thrilled. Chromebook Pixel. Okay. I'm sure there's several people who are thrilled to see that the light bar uh has made a return, dare I say a triumphant return. But every person I've ever known that wanted to see it come back has been adamant about the fact they want it to actually do stuff, like at least be animated in some way. Um and if it's not, I feel like that's going to be a bit of a failure. Um so don't don't f it up, Google. I know that's a big ask, but yeah, I'm very curious about this. Obviously, they're hoping that this also is that the equivalent of the Apple logo, the big Apple logo that tons and tons of laptops have, which anyone can identify from a mile away. Which also notably, in their presentation, the Google book that they showed, there's no disputing that aside from the difference in logo and light bar, this just looks like a MacBook Pro. It or well, a MacBook. It looks like it's aluminum. It has ports in the same spots. Not that that's a big thing. Um, the keyboard is perfectly it like a perfect cutout and shape of what Apple keyboards would be like. It just has a very obvious Apple laptop look to it. And who knows, maybe that's just what they came up with in renders. Maybe none of them will look like this. Oh, yes, and I wanted to bring that up, Carson. They have an HDMI port, which the moment I saw that, my immediate thought is I haven't looked or I don't know enough about Android's current feature support, but is this going to allow multi-monitor? Is this going to be like a mirrored situation where uh, whatever you plug into just becomes the main monitor and the laptop screen like goes dark or something? Or like what are the features that are actually going to be supported here? I'm assuming that you can just have a second desktop, but I
I mean,
if I've learned
Android
anything,
supports
assumptions
again,
are
like
bad.
I mean, Android supports secondary monitors like that's in the Android Studio emulator. But again, like that would have been great to talk about in their announcement of this new platform instead of, look, we made a fifth way to access Gemini.
Yeah.
Don't you want to buy our laptop? They gotta let me do this. They gotta let me announce their products. No more Sundar and not the executives, just me, a person who has not used an Android phone daily for like 4 years now.
There you go. That's definitely the new strategy. So, um,
Uh, we can talk
also,
about the if you want to do the quick share stuff next because that's kind of small and interesting.
um,
It's a little bit
I
third to the
oh,
bottom.
yeah, that one.
It says AirDrop.
Yeah.
Um, so the rest of the show was about just Android in general. They talked again about the quick share updates and the ability to send data to iPhones over AirDrop. So this has been a thing that I think is still only on the Pixel right now. Is the ability to basically iPhones with AirDrop show up as quick share targets on Android, and it's all fairly transparent. And they mentioned again that that feature is coming to more devices later this year, including Samsung, Oppo, OnePlus, Vivo, Xiaomi, and Honor. Um, and one new thing is if you're also getting the ability to share data with an iPhone with just QR codes. So there's going to be a system where when you activate Quick Share, it can generate a QR code that someone else can scan, and then they get the file that way. So again, like you're transferring screenshots from like the Nintendo Switch, or my web app Image Share also does this. You scan a QR code and it grabs the file. So I assume when you do that, they're like temporarily uploading it to a cloud server somewhere for that to work. Or maybe if you're on the same Wi-Fi network, it could be a little local server, but I feel like they're not going to implement that. And they also mentioned that they have improved the iPhone to Android transfer process. So if you are one of the remarkably few people who switch from from iPhone to Android, there is a better setup process for migrating your passwords, photos, messages, apps, contacts, and home screen layout, and for some devices, transferring the eSIM. So that's nice. That's nice if you need to do that. Um, and then this post also mentions, and I put it in another item, is that uh, RCS messaging across iPhone and Android devices can now have end-to-end encryption. So, long time coming. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Um,
I actually did cover this last week on the Ramble because Apple had rolled it out and was basically already bragging about it, which it was
mhm.
kind of funny. And but yeah. So it was previously announced and everyone kind of knew this was coming anyway because obviously like everyone said they were working on this, but it was just a big question of like when is it going to happen? And so both companies have gotten to have their announcements.
Yeah. So it's they say it's rolling out in beta for iPhones on iOS 26.5. I guess that's the iOS beta right now. I
Yep.
don't know what this. Am I on? What version am I on right now?
Actually, I think 26.5 I think is stable now.
I'm on 26.4, and I have an update available for 26.5. Okay, so I'll do that later.
Yeah.
I can't believe my iPhone didn't automatically update again. This has never happened.
Yeah, my the device I have um I just updated it to 26.5 yesterday. So yeah.
and they say it's on supported carriers. And obviously, if you have an Android device, you need to be on a recent version of Google Messages. So, the same limitations apply of like, yeah, you need to be using Google Messages. That's annoying that that's still a hard requirement for any RCS at all. But it's there now. So, in theory, more of your cross device messaging will be secure and not sent in plain text through like AT&T servers like it's still 1997. So that's cool. That's nice.
Hey, admit it. 1997 doesn't seem so bad versus modern day. Not on a tech related thing, just in general. Um, but yeah, this is an improvement. Obviously, I said a lot of the same stuff last week. Um, it's kind of weirdly overdue. This is something Apple should have had worked out a long time ago. Um, and it is a little funny because if you watch the presentation, they very clearly did kind of like the dare I say smug. They didn't come right out and said, "Look, we won," but that's very clearly what was intended.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a low key kind of slap to Apple, like, "Hey, we finally forced you into RCS. Now, welcome to the club." Um, so good for Google. They did finally win. Uh, I after years of us saying that it was probably never going to happen, here it is. The only problem is the rest of the world is still using WhatsApp, and dear God, that needs to stop.
Yeah, I mean, from the tech stack standpoint, I'm not sure it matters all that much. I'm not sure if like all of our text messages going through a Google server is much better than all of our text messages going through a Facebook server.
You
But
hear the words
the
coming out of your mouth right now, right?
yeah, they're all bad. But
I mean,
I I mean the end result here of like you don't really have to think about it, and some of your messages will be RCS. That part at least is an improvement. So that's good.
I'm just gonna stick on the WhatsApp is literally by design a security flaw. It is so it has like Swiss cheese level security. So just putting that out there. Um, but as Carson points out, yeah, this still doesn't support inline replies, which I hadn't tested that, but yeah, that is a bit disappointing. I'm sure there are other things it's also missing, but maybe less noticeable. But
Yeah,
hey,
I mean, again,
it is what it
as
is.
long as we're past the days of like I remember like texting like a video to my mom and it got downgraded to like 240p, like not even that. I don't I don't think. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Oh,
Or
proper
proper
reactions to
reaction.
images.
Yeah,
Truthfully, I'm surprised reactions are working at all, but that maybe they're not. I'm not really sure. To be
I've
fair,
been running.
I don't really
I've
message people with
Yeah,
like this anymore. Pretty much
that
all
that
of my messaging is done on Discord or some other platform where like that's the point of contact I have with them. I don't. It, I think I only message one person, and I don't actually use reactions or really anything else. And they're on Android, so
Yeah, that's what I mentioned when I saw this news. Is like I don't think I've ever RCS messaged anyone because I only had it wasn't it when
well,
I
you're on
moved off of
iPhone,
Android.
so like it is.
Right. Well, when I moved off of Android, it was still in that weird spot of like some carriers trying to run their own infrastructure, and then really everyone I was texting had iPhone, so that's all iMessage now. And yeah, 95% of my communication is through other things. So I'm sure that the next time I need to text someone, this will be useful. But it doesn't really come up much. Um, And another Android thing. I guess I'll jump down to this the last item because I don't think I have anything insightful about the car stuff, which is most of the remainder, and I do need to go in about 8 minutes or 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, I'm
Um,
I'm happy to take the car stuff, and I'll have some other things to talk about too.
yeah, Austin successfully predicted the next topic, which is the emoji. There is new emoji. Um, they Google has revealed the Noto 3D emoji font, which will be available across Google starting with Pixel phones later this year. And it is a similar style as before, but now it's more like embossed and there's more depth and 3D in the images.
Well, more
So,
shading.
right, like it's still kind of vaguely like it looks like an illustration. It's not like photorealism or
Oh,
anything.
far from it. Yeah.
But it is more like like embossed and appears more. There's a little bit more depth in there, and I I haven't like looked at all the emoji. I guess this is fine. It's a little bit closer to Apple style, I think, because Apple also isn't really doing like flat graphics anymore for the emoji. Um, I will say I just don't like the super detailed emoji in general, like when any platform does this, because Apple has this issue too, where just at the scale you normally see them, you lose all that detail and it's just harder to see. Like I think my favorite emoji font to this day is still like either the like Android 4.0 era where it was like just every image had like 5 colors max, really, or the like Windows 10 emoji set where it was pretty simple graphics with very heavy stroke around the images. So just like super contrast, like you can see what the emoji was doing. Austin said, "Bring back blobs." I agree. I agree. The blobs were preferable. Um, I just don't. I don't like this style of emoji because I think these are better as like stickers, like when they're scaled up to a larger size, but when they're in like text bubble size or just at a normal font size, I think they're less readable than some other options.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, I have really very few strong opinions on this. Um, at least right now. I I feel like once I see these on a phone screen as opposed to seeing them in sort of blown up form like this, I'd probably lean a little more in the direction of yeah, if it's too detailed it starts looking either bad or just too hard to recognize. Or at least some of these might be. We'll see. Um Also, just looking over some of the icons, it leaves me wondering, like, why do they even have this one here? A good example of that is the CD. How many people even know what a CD looks like anymore? Like, or when's the last time someone physically
Well,
saw a CD?
it's just a normal disc. We still have discs. People still buy PS5 games, I think.
Do they?
Yeah,
If you
they
say so.
do.
I know that there's a narrow group that certainly wants the physical disc, but yeah, that
Well, the discussion of like which emoji are necessary, that's sort of just out of Google's hands at that point. They're stuck with everything that got into
oh no
Unicode.
no I'm not talking about what's necessary. I'm talking about literally in this post where they're showing
Oh,
the flip
right.
between
The
old and
example,
new.
yeah.
Like,
Right.
why are they picking that? There have to be others that would be better examples than literally a an item that is itself not really three-dimensional. Like, technically it is, but come on, it's flat.
Mhm.
They they did not need to use a thing that is not very dimensional to demonstrate, oh, we added dimensionality to these things. Um,
I want to
so
see where have they. I guess they haven't shown all of the emoji. I want to see what the turtle looks like. I need this. I need the turtle update.
uh, well, I
Every post about this just has the one image from this blog post, so there's not.
yeah.
We don't have the full set yet. I need to see the turtle.
I was about to make a joke about, oh well, they made it a toy turtle, in reference to the toy gun
Hmm.
controversy, but yeah, that joke doesn't really land without the full explanation, which makes it not really that good of a joke. Um, but yeah, I don't know. There's some odd choices in here, and some of these
I
look good, some of these look bad.
I do really like this sentence in 9 to 5 Google's article from Ben, where he just says, "On the other hand, we continue to stray further from the beloved blobs."
Yeah.
I fully agree. That's a great. That's just a good sentence out of context.
Um.
I want the blobs back.
Honestly, blobs were kind of peak. Uh, all that being said, I know full well there are some people who I'm sure are very excited about this. So I'm
David in the chat saying, "I can't wait to see the eggplant in 3D." Yeah.
oh no. Actually, well, in fairness, I'm kind of looking forward to seeing the peaches in 3D.
Again, I want to see the turtle. What's the turtle up to? Because you're not going to top the. Oh wait, this other 9 to 5 Google article has a turtle. Okay, I'll put this in the YouTube chat. It looks fine. It's the same design. It's just more shadows in 3D. But he's still a happy little guy. That's so I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, still it's still cute. So, no objections.
Yeah.
Um
Again, I've always preferred the like super flat with like big outlines emoji. Those always look the best to me. Um, and all of these more complex designs seem better suited as stickers.
Austin
Austin, so can
asking
we?
for custom emoji at the system level on Android. No. No. Oh, dude, maybe this has been kicked into my head a few too many times because I actually do listen to for real the ADB podcast, Android Developers Backstage podcast. Um, they've had the emoji team on there two or three times that I've heard, and every single time they've talked extensively about how much work they did putting the emoji or creating the emoji library, making it updatable, all the different things that they've done with it. And oh my god, it just having listened to all of it and the complications and kind of the weird traits of it and all that stuff. No. No, they cannot and will not ever do this at system level again. I'm pretty convinced. This is just the future of emoji. Um, so yeah, that's all I can really say to that. If you have any questions, go listen to those podcast episodes. You'll marvel at how over the top their solutions and implementations are. Or
I
shudder, I guess would be the other reaction.
just want the old ones back. Um, yeah. So I need to go now. And there's a couple Android things left that I don't have strong opinions on. It was mostly just me being mad that the Google book was exactly as I anticipated, at least thus far, with no redeeming qualities. Except if you want just like a phone laptop, then I guess like you can have that if you want, but you deserve better. I think you can do better.
You deserve better.
And I can't wait to see how expensive those are too, because they're going to be completely ruined by RAM prices. So it's going to be like, all right, here's your Android laptop. It's $1,000.
I oh yeah. here's the thing. I do completely agree. I'm very curious about price. Obviously, because there are going to be multiple models coming out, and I'm sure they're hoping not to have to deal with the RAM price issue. Uh, well, RAM and SSDs, and who knows what else by then. So, yeah, I fully get it. They're not going to talk about price. They're not going to talk about specs. They're not going to talk about a few things. But man, I also we need to know. Like that is kind of the do or die for this platform. And if this stuff launches at a high price where the only people who can afford it are or the only people who would be willing to test it are enthusiasts, a few developers, and a few people with just more money than like enough money that they're just going to frivolously buy it. Like if that's your only audience, if that's your only market that's going to buy it, you're dead in the water already. I hate to say it, but this is one of those things they're going to have to break into schools with this. They're going to have to find ways to get people to want these things on relatively cheap scale and people who are also in for the premium. And if they don't have a good answer to that, I they're going to have a really slow start.
It's gonna get silly.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
we know how Google doesn't react well to things with a slow start. Anyway,
Yes. Goodbye.
take it easy. Okay, let's switch out of double capture mode. All right. Um so, uh topics to cover. I may as well close those particular things. So, more ways to create and share. This was the yeah, so this was the section about the selfie cam screen recordings feature, which was shown off by Ananya. I forget her last name. Um, I'm actually just gonna pop the video here. This girl, she is, as far as I can tell, a social media photographer type. I have never heard of her, um, or never seen her that I'm aware of. Um, too old to care about influencer features. Sadly, they're uh, they're they're thick, but yeah, I will grant. So they showed off this specific thing where this is such a TikTok behavioral thing. I don't even watch TikTok. I open TikTok once every 6 months for a couple minutes and then close it. Um, but the whole thing of having yourself in the bottom of the screen while you screen record, and typically like the bad cutout around your head and stuff like that. It's such a pattern. Oops. Um, so yeah, being able to do that, it is obviously super popular. People love doing this. I get it. I'm not going to get into the battle over whether that's good or bad. Um, but I thought it was pretty. It was interesting that they decided to do such a long segment with her. Not that she was bad or anything. She was fine. Um, and so that was all well and good. And I'm talking about this before I actually get into the subject, but I really wanted to call out one specific thing that just made me laugh so hard. Um, at the very end, if you okay, so for those that don't know, and I assume a lot of people do, um, there is in India there is a particular cultural behavioral thing that a lot of Indian people do. They if they just kind of wobble their head, it is sort of a way of communicating, um, like a no, I don't really mean it, or no, this is a lie, or no, I don't agree with this, or no, that's bad, but I'm not going to say it's bad. Like that kind of thing. If you watch this video very closely, I saw this right away. At the very tail end of her segment, she says something to the effect of um it how easy something is, and it's great to do on my Pixel. And if you understand the concept of micro expressions, watch her head as she says that, and she leans in, and then you see just a little bit of a micro expression as she wobbles her head. The moment I saw that, it's yes, it does mean different things, but none of them are positive. Um, but the moment I saw that, it's like, okay, yeah, she's not even a Pixel user, which is fine. I don't care. They've obviously cast other people that don't use Pixel phones to do some of their things in the past. That's fine. I just thought it was funny that they did that, and no one was like, can we just like reshoot that? Someone had to have seen it and should have been like, hey, you did it. Can we just do another take? That would have been the smart move. But there were a lot of things during this presentation as I was watching them. I thought, yeah, you guys kind of goofed. Like little things that they did. Uh, let's see, like the camera angles that they decided to show with Samir, like this. This is a let's see, how long did this one last? Was what I was looking for. Um, so maybe yeah, that one wasn't too bad. That was about 4.5 seconds or so. But there were a couple of the camera angles that they put on Samir that just lagged a little too long. And some of the weird camera, yeah, this is I think the one. Um yeah, that one is lasting, that was about 6 seconds. There just were some weird angles that they put on him as he was speaking, and it got a little cringy. It's like someone who's just learned that they can do camera movements, camera zooms, things like that. Um that's a thank you wobble. I don't think I agree with that, especially given when she said it and how she said it. Um, Nevertheless, yeah, this was that was all very odd. Okay, but so the influencer thing, I mean, that's just a feature that they're adding. I'm kind of indifferent to it. Like it's not good, it's not bad. It's just a thing that they're adding. They also made extensive efforts to talk about that they're adding Instagram filter like compatibility, and or more integrations with Instagram, which I saw that and was kind of like, yeah, okay, fine, I guess. There's not a whole lot to really say. It's more like this. It felt like a feature drop sort of thing, like something that they should highlight in like December, like the December feature drop or January feature drop, not something that really belonged here. So I kind of think that they were maybe throwing out a um I guess throwing a bone to Instagram, just like let's stay friends and we'll highlight this thing and remind people that we're all companies that work together, something like that. Um so yeah, that happened. Let's see. Maximize your creativity and optimize pro grade video. Which yes, I do know about some of the other topics, but I'm looking at the blog post aspect of this first. Um, this is kind of not actually a big thing. All right, so they mention, yep, here are the two things I wanted to talk about. So they mention Adobe Premiere is coming to Android soon. With Premiere, you'll gain access to exclusive templates and effects to create and post YouTube shorts from the app, helping you stand out in the feed. Okay, right off the bat, Adobe Premiere, well, what is the version, or what is it called? There's already an Adobe Premiere app on Android. It's Premiere Flash, I think is what it's called. It's fine. It's a fairly good editing app. I have objections to it over their business model, but the app is fine. I'm genuinely curious what they think they're going to bring with a so called Adobe Premiere app, other than just like expanding a few more features. Because Premiere Flash was actually a good app. It's a really good editing app. It's not necessarily the most full featured, but it was good. Now, I could see there being an argument that maybe Premiere Flash was only phone oriented. I think that is the case. And maybe Premiere, like a regular Premiere app, might be suited, I guess, for larger screens. Um, yeah, that would have actually been a better way to say it, is that it's coming to Google Book. Though who knows when we'll actually see Google Book. And it's not that big of a bragging right if Google Book ends up falling on its face. So we'll see. Um, so, like, this is a thing that I get that they want to hype, and it's something I'm sure Adobe is very happy with and proud of for whatever reason. But I kind of don't think this is actually going to be a big deal. Um, Especially because they seem to be focusing so much on the fact that it's going to be using, or that it's going to be for posting shorts. I don't think that's I don't think that's the win that they're looking for, because there's already so many editing apps that are good for shorts, and Premiere is kind of the wrong tool for that. Honestly, Premiere Flash was a better tool for that. Or, well, I can't say better without having seen Premiere, but I kind of have a funny feeling that this is not going to be that special. Um, that being said, Blackmagic, if you ever do a DaVinci app for Android, you know you're going to get like a good 30 minutes of me just praising it. But okay, moving on. The thing that actually does happen to involve Blackmagic is APV, Advanced Professional Video, the codec that they basically worked with Samsung. Well, Google worked with Samsung and Blackmagic Studio to produce this. I love that they just stopped mentioning that Blackmagic Studio, or sorry, Blackmagic Design, not Studio. Blackmagic Design was involved in the creation of this. Anyway, um, so they are highlighting that. They are advertising that it will be in the new Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5, which, yes, is in the S26 Ultra, the Vivo X300 Ultra, and that's so far it. I'm still confused as hell about how this didn't make it into the Tensor G10, or, well, wait, whichever Tensor chip it is that's in the Pixel 10 Pro. Um, it should have been in there. I think I think they completely screwed up not putting hardware support for their new codec into their new phone when their new phone came out. Um, but maybe this year, uh, Big G, could you maybe do that this year when everyone will genuinely expect it? Um, so yeah, this needs to happen like post haste. Um, yeah, I think these were odd things to highlight in this, because it really felt like, I mean, it was the very end of the blog post, so it's getting less attention anyway, but it feels like they didn't really put the like quote unquote pro grade video editing as a top tier issue. So yeah, I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. I wanted to see more or better, but they kind of flubbed that. Let's see. So Corbin didn't add everything, but he did also add this, which this I think is one of the more interesting things that they highlighted too. Uh, basically, they're wait, is this? Yeah, okay. Let's start with uh, wait, is this? Are these split up in Android Auto? Yeah, okay. And then okay, just making sure. All right, I think this is probably the better one to start with. Um, so there are new changes coming for Android Auto and Android Automotive. For Android Auto, one of the big things that they highlighted is there's going to be a new look for Google Maps in navigation mode. Basically, they're doing kind of a sort of 3D space. Um, let's come down to, yeah, here we go. Sort of a 3D space, a little more fluid, a little better, nicer design, um, that shows a little bit more how the drive is actually supposed to look. I'm a big fan of this. Uh, it's something I've wanted to see for a long time. Yay. Granted, this might look a little cartoony, and look, I live in a place where honestly, a lot of the information in Google Maps is still kind of wrong. Usually, it's not wrong by big levels. Um, a lot of times, it's just like the wrong speed limit, or uh, it's assuming that a lane can, or like it might be assuming that two lanes can turn left, and in reality, maybe it's just one. Um, and I've noticed that actually quite a few times. As it turns out, there are, however, a few instances where it assumes there are like whole lanes that don't exist. That sometimes happens. Um, so yeah, I have a feeling that things like this are going to choke a little bit more when they're presented when the data is wrong. Um, so I kind of look forward to seeing how that plays out. Also dreading it to some extent. Let's see. They're adding. It, it, I I don't want to call this adding. Like they're finally expanding the ability to watch video in the car. So it's a neat feature. I like it. If you haven't heard about it, basically, when you're parked, you can watch full video, like straight up. Just you can watch full video, and then when you shift into driving, the video turns off, and you just get an audio version of it, which is good for like video podcasts and things like that. Arguably, it could also be good for movies if you don't mind not watching the movie, you just want to hear what's going on. Um, at this stage, I don't see a problem with this. I think it's fine. There's yes, people are going to find hacks or workarounds, or um, and some people won't will still do stupid things while they're driving just so that they can watch. Or I shouldn't say while they're driving, but like when people go into park, people might be parking dumbly or not paying attention to traffic lights just because they want to watch video at the same time. Um, there will be some bad behaviors. Um, okay, this is kind of inopportune, but I need to go take care of something really quick. So sorry. I will be right back. Might take a few minutes. Sorry about this. All right. Did I just accidentally hit that? No. Okay. Good. We didn't just break anything. Awesome. All right. Really quickly also, this battery is cooked. Okay. So, let's see. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, but I realized I didn't say it quite clearly. All the little things like lane assist and stuff like that, I genuinely wonder how much these are going to get tripped up. Um, but we'll see. Okay, so they mentioned full screen video. Um, Gemini on the road. Look, it is what it is. It's the same thing that we've already seen and had. Um, Magic Q, again, this is stuff that we actually kind of have now, or they've announced in the past, so it's not really a big change there. Um, Big upgrades to cars. I honestly I don't remember this section. Um, let's what what changed here? Um, oh, things like identifying the mysterious indicator light in a dashboard, which okay. Um, or if you wanted to buy a TV, will it fit in your trunk? Yeah, this stuff. Those are more like goofy demos. Yeah, they didn't actually do that much for cars outside of basically a promise that they're going to change the Google Maps. They're going to um, this I actually did kind of like the bit about you'll be able to speak more naturally to the car or speak more naturally about what you want, and the car should just the car interface should be able to respond to it a little bit better, and in theory like maybe even take multiple steps, things like that. That stuff at least sounds like an improvement. We'll have to see how it plays out. So far, I gotta say, the experience I've had now that Gemini's taken over for voice instructions in the car, I'm not thrilled. It's so many times I've asked it to do something or even just play a song, and it'll think about it for like 20 seconds and then just stops. Doesn't say anything, doesn't make a sound, no indicators except for the glowing bar just disappears. And it's like, could you have done something? Anything? Like at least tell me that you're about to just fail quietly. Why couldn't you do something simple like playing the song I told you to play? Um so yeah, this has been a consistent problem ever since Google Assistant was replaced by Gemini. So I'm not in love with that experience. Um, so far, it's been a net negative for sure. But maybe maybe that was a thing that got started and hasn't really been finished yet. Maybe it'll get a lot better. I sure hope so. I expect so. It needs to. Um, let's see. Yeah, as I skim over this, there was a whole lot of stuff that was like very narrowly relevant or just wasn't new. So, okay, yeah. Um, but they did also kind of hype up the way that um, the way that the interfaces can kind of change. They're also putting. I don't think this got mentioned here. Oh yeah, okay, it did. Um, so you can do the custom widgets. This, by the way, we didn't talk about this earlier, but it was one of the things that they talked about quite a bit during the presentation. Um, the ability to ask, um, the ability to ask for custom widgets to be made which they didn't really explain as much as I think they should have or could have. But it sounds like basically you just vibe code a widget, it compiles, and then you now have that widget. Uh, but apparently you will be able to put those in the car, or at least to some extent, which is a really interesting thing to have hyped up and done. I'm curious how that's going to work. And I'm curious how that's going to work in practice because I'm a little skeptical of it. Uh, I think in theory it sounds great. In practice, it could be interesting and very narrow possibility of it could be disastrous. We'll see what happens. But I do like the idea of at least being able to put widgets in the car. That is actually a cool feature, assuming it's going to work well. Um, and truthfully, there actually have been ideas I've had in the past about uh, widgets that I could see having in the car, or well, small interactions, I should say. Maybe not. Maybe widgets would be the wrong word, but small, simple interactions. And if it's only in the form of widgets, I can see doing that. I'm not too opposed to that as the interaction model. Um, at least for some of the stuff I've been thinking about. Um, let's see. What were some of the other things that I know that there was more that was mentioned in the announcement that Corbin didn't include when he added links. And I was so busy I just didn't get to add links. I only got to watch the presentation. And I also watched the developers cut, which maybe I'm a little too jaded and maybe I've forgotten something, but they did like an 11-minute developers cut video and not a lot of it had anything. Um yeah, I mean again, maybe I'm just being too cynical, but the developers cut felt like kind of a nothing burger. It was a whole lot of sort of promise of things, but not necessarily like uh, real actionable stuff, I guess would be the way to put it. It was a whole lot of talking about Gemini and what it can do, how it can be used. Um, Obviously, again, they hyped up widgets, which it, that seems to be like their big trick from this event was like how cool can widgets be. um let's see, they also talked up, this is actually something I'm interested in. Do they have this in, was this in this other um oh, okay, really quickly, I'm just going to mention that this is a thing so that and I'm not going to talk about it beyond this. But one of their things was a new well-being feature called Pause Point, which um, I just don't think anyone's going to use it. That's it. If you care about Pause Point and want to know more, I'm not even going to bother trying to explain it. It just seemed like adding a feature that like 12 people are going to think is really great, and everyone else is going to be like, no, this is not solving a problem I have. Um, or rather, it's not a good way to solve the problem that they have. Uh, okay, let's see. Is this the blog post that covers it? Yep, it kind of is. Okay, so this blog post is called "Building for the Intelligence System on Android," um, and what they're doing is basically working with. Right now, it's working with a few apps, uh, and the example they gave here was like a DoorDash thing where basically this is the you give a command to Gemini, and Gemini looks for apps and anything that can be an actionable way of performing a task, and it basically comes to it produces some kind of uh well it I guess the best way to say it is it does the agentic thing that agentic AI is supposed to do. It finds apps that can carry out particular tasks. It goes through the flow it needs to go through, and then presents you with the option to complete any like actual action that needs to be taken. So in this case, it's um, making a food order, and then you're the one who has to press the button to complete the order. That sort of thing. Um, so they're working with a few companies. They mentioned that they're doing it with rideshare, food delivery, and I forget what else, but that's it's a good thing. It's interesting. What stood out to me was more um did they show, let's see. I'm looking for a specific graphic and I don't know if it came before this section or after. But basically, okay, it's the app functions section, I think. Um yep, this is it. So, yeah, they're basically setting up a model for uh, you expose sort of a loose API. And this isn't the first time they've mentioned this. It's something that they've talked about in the past. They've been working on it. They were, if I remember, they even made a kind of a public call to companies saying, "Hey, if you want to be a part of this program, um, we want to talk to you," kind of a thing. So yeah, basically the idea is you expose some sort of effectively a loose API that Gemini will be able to hook into and activate, and will then proceed to tell your app things it wants to have done or things it wants to know, or it can interact with your app in some functional way that's not a user interface. It's a protocol or some sort of interface that Gemini will be able to interact with. And then once you've exposed those functions, Gemini can call on them to perform various actions. This sounds pretty good. Um, I'm I think there are probably going to be some security and privacy issues that come up, but that's hard to avoid. Um, but it's good that they're finally creating ways for apps to hook into Gemini and vice versa. So I appreciate seeing that. I I'm curious how it's going to play out. I think there are going to be some funky issues. It's definitely going to be an imperfect thing for a long time, but who knows? We can hope. Let's see. The Cacao Talk thing was dumb. Uh, this was the. Oh yeah, this was how Samsung was integrating some stuff with app functions, which this was a completely dull, boring section. There was kind of no point to it. Um, let's see. Where do they Magic Q, which obviously we've talked about this before. Basically, it's, hey, we can detect that there are certain things that maybe we can help with, blah blah blah, and so it's just a way for Gemini to sort of pop up and prompt you uh, with little helpful things. But I so far I haven't seen this actually working. I have everything enabled on my phone, and there's supposed to already be features like this, and they almost never come up. So I'm not sure that they're really that deep into it yet. Um, let's see, a lot more. Oh, this was the okay. That's the stuff about the car, but they basically just spent a lot of time kind of saying, hey, uh, Jetpack Library and Jetpack Compose are um, getting better and becoming the solutions for building for all these different platforms, which, yeah, we know. Um, and then back to the creating a widget. Yeah, the developer cut really did not do a lot for me. Um, Remote Compose is interesting if you know how widgets are built. The remote views thing was a really messy and complicated thing to work with, but it did work. Um, Remote Compose seems to be kind of like an upgraded and improved version of that, obviously built on Compose. So yeah, the developer's cut was not too special. Um, Really quick, also, while I am briefly criticizing this, I I think it I think it is on me to just call this out. Nobody wanted to see. I show me someone that wanted to see Paris Hilton. Out of all the celebrity cameos, like getting uh oh, actually let me actually get her real name. Um uh uh Ananya Pandey. She was great. I have no issue with her. She was great on screen. She was energetic, good personality. Uh, but if the only other cameo or like real cameo was Paris Hilton, and I don't get it. Why? Why? Literally, why? And if you watch this section, I am so blown away that look, Paris Hilton is in her mid 40s trying to talk, or is she 50 now? Anyway, she's trying to talk like people who aren't even as old as her catchphrase. She's had a that's hot catchphrase for over 20 years, and she's trying to talk like people who aren't even 20 yet. I'm sorry, but the Paris Hilton section was just so cringe. I I yeah, I it bugs me honestly that they drug her in for this. Um I truly cannot imagine anybody caring about her. Uh or at least in this capacity. And look, I've actually met her. I've actually hung out and talked with her before. Um at least when I did many years ago. She was fine. She she puts on a personality. It's a fake behavior of being the being this media personality. That's fine. I don't have any issue with that. Well, I do have some issues with it, but that's neither here nor there. Um, but this sort of thing, this is not a good cameo. They could have found almost anybody else, and it would have been better. So yeah, it made no sense. Um, I don't know. Let's see. Was there anything else? Yeah, a lot of the talk about the Google book. I still swear I remember them mentioning Samsung was a hardware partner. Um, oh yeah, they highlighted that they made a file manager for Google Book, which is literally just Google Files, but for a bigger screen. That was um, that was interesting. The one cool part, and I am so happy that they did this. I was actually thinking about this in advance of the show. Uh, Having files on your phone with Android, it's not like it's the worst experience in the world, but it's so unpleasant if you need to do a lot of file management between a computer and your phone. You can either spend money to buy one of the couple like reasonably professional apps that handle this, Uh, Even those aren't very good, at least not in the experiences that I've had. You can, let's see, you can use the free stuff that Google made ages ago that only kind of works now. Um, or you can use like syncing services and things like that, like Dropbox or whatever, to move files on like from your phone to a computer. Or of course you can do, various other things like connecting an actual cable or doing really slow wireless transfers or things like that. All of these solutions suck. It's not like the Apple ecosystem is great. They still have some problematic behaviors, but it's stuff that at least works. I'm sorry, but Google's got to solve this. They need to work with Apple and Microsoft to make, and of course get something in Linux to just make moving files to any platform a reasonable, quick, and efficient process. You should be able to plug your phone into any computer. And by the way, I say this to Apple as well. You should be able to plug your phone into any computer and just be able to access files in a open location. Those should just be accessible. This shouldn't be a problem or challenge. It should just be an easy thing to do. File management on your phone should not be limited to just on your phone. It should be, honestly, it should be just like plugging in any mass storage drive. It's baffling to me that this is not universally accepted. Uh, okay, so I don't know. Rants kind of over. The presentation itself was fine. It was watchable. They tried for some humor. I liked that they tried. I don't think that it was super funny, but I'm not expecting that. Um, they're not comedians. They're not actors. So, comedic timing wasn't going to be perfect. Uh, the setups in some cases were a little, a little clumsy. But hey, you know, what do you expect? It's not like Apple got all their various bits perfect. Um, I think back to, just for example, the Octavia Spencer thing back in like 2 years ago or so, where she went on and played Mother Nature during a WWDC keynote, or maybe that was an iPhone presentation. I forget which. Anyway, that was bad. It was just objectively bad. Here, anything Google did was, none of it was bad except maybe the Paris Hilton cameo. Uh, but they had like various executives or product people, like they did, for example, one of them, as they were starting her section, they have kind of a behind the scenes moment of her saying, "Oh, I'm supposed to make a joke here. Well, I'll give it my best shot," or something like that. Which, okay, I think they were trying to kind of do a little bit of a smack against Apple again, sort of calling out Apple's like hyper perfectionist presentation videos. And Google's kind of trying to do more of a play it casually style, which makes sense. I don't fault them for it. If they do it again next year, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not excited for them to do it next year, but I also am not going to come away from it thinking any worse of them. Um, and when you consider they can't try to be too funny, because realistically, their eyes on this, maybe not millions and millions, but I don't know, maybe there are. A lot of people are going to be watching these videos from all around the world. They're going to be just lots and lots of uh, people from different cultures, different perspectives, different sensibilities. And if Google tried to do anything too elaborate, too over the top, it would risk alienating some group or offending some group. So I think they made the right choice. They tried to be a little bit funny, but kept it really really toned down, um, and more casual, but like business casual, I guess. So yeah, the presentation was fine. Um, they didn't rush through topics too much, which I appreciate. I think they gave about the right amount of time to most of the topics. There were a couple that I don't think really deserve to be topics, but they didn't spend a lot of time on them, so I think that's good. Uh, Again, kind of to reiterate, I think we needed to hear more about Google Book. Not not that they didn't spend about the right amount of time, but I think in a few places maybe they focused on the wrong things. I think we I think the thing most people are going to come away from is expecting a little bit more about Google Book to come up fairly soon in the future. So, we'll see. Uh, Also, one thing that was missing, Android XR. It was mentioned in the developer's cut, but that was it. They did not bring it up once during the Android show proper. Um, and I think that I could be wrong, but I think that's what a lot of people really wanted to hear about because look, we're basically 6 months in since the release of the hardware or first release of the hardware. Shouldn't we be hearing a little more about it by now? I'm not worried that they're going to kill the project, but I'm also starting to feel a little bit of that itch like this is kind of how it felt when Glass happened and then sort of lagged out. And it's the same with the same kind of happened with Stadia, and the same kind of happened with a few of the others. And maybe that's just sort of confirmation bias or exposure bias, where the projects that I specifically remember uh, as having died from sort of like lack of support, they went through this phase. But I'm not thinking about maybe various other projects that did survive that may have also gone through this phase. It's hard to be sure, but it feels like they didn't put in everything for that they could have for the Google Book. Or sorry, for I meant Android XR. Yeah, sorry. I'm tired. Brain is half working. Um so yeah, I don't know. I wanted more, but maybe not more. I wanted different. It was a good event. Just I think I would have liked maybe a little bit less continual focus on um AI. Not that there's any surprise there. I wanted a little bit more hard details about Google Book. Um, yeah, okay. There was trying to skim through to see if there was any other reminding things. Um, so okay, yeah, it was an okay presentation. I'm I'm now looking forward to next week. And when I say looking forward to, it's kind of dreading because I think everything that we saw today or yesterday, it's going to kind of it kind of speaks to what we're probably going to be getting for sure in IO, which is basically a crap load of AI stuff. Because if you're paying attention during this, you probably noticed there was a whole lot of stuff where um Gemini was like the key topic, but they were just sort of applying the how does Gemini relate to Android Auto? Or sorry, well, yeah, I could say it that way. How does Gemini relate to Android Auto? How does it relate to widgets? How does it relate to this thing or that thing? There was a whole lot of Gemini in everything, and they just talked about how it also tends to kind of improve in the Android, or how it relates to or can be connected with Android. Um, and there were some Android specific things that didn't involve AI, but uh, yeah, it just feels like we know what we're in for. We all know it's going to be a very AI heavy Google I/O. Um. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers anything I had to say about it, and I would have loved to come in with other topics, but truthfully, I have been too busy to look at or for any other topics to cover from this week. Um, let's see. Also, that thing that I said earlier about Sundar Pichai having almost no presence in this. So he turns up here at basically about 20 say 25 seconds in. Yeah, 25 seconds in, and then he is gone by a minute 14. So yeah, he didn't even make it a minute. I even I thought it was longer than that. So he made it 50 seconds. And then you never see him again in this video. It's just a lot of Samir talking at first, and then they go on to obviously each of the various like product leads or um, VPs, executives, whatever the various people are, and of course we actually got in Dieter, so congrats to him. Um, Kind of makes me wonder. Also, is Dieter going to be making a making another appearance at I/O? Because he's not just Android. He does cover other stuff. Um, has Sundar ever been excited about Android? Your sentence is too long. Has Sundar ever been excited? I don't. I don't think that's in his personality. Um, you think he avoids Android? Well, he was a Google Chrome, or he was on the Google Chrome team uh, before he became VP. So it kind of makes sense that he's less invested in Android. I'm not sure that I don't know that I'd say he avoids it, because when's the last time you heard him talk about Google Chrome? When's the last time you heard him talk about really anything other than AI? And obviously, some of that is just bias, bias sort of stemming from still he made Andromeda being killed. Yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I wait a second. What is going on with the audio? Oh wait, did I never turn that back on? Okay. Huh. All right. I might need to fix that later. Um. So yeah, I don't know that he's really necessarily avoiding Android, but I'll agree. I don't think he's particularly interested in Android. He does seem to have more of the mindset for prop up AI. Um, he seems to like talking about investments and things. He he reminds me a lot of Tim Cook in sort of that way that Tim Cook's whole thing was supply chain and sort of the investments and the money. Tim Cook isn't against the technology, but it doesn't seem like his thing. And I look at Sundar and I think, yeah, Sundar doesn't strike me as an engineer. He strikes me as the guy who, uh, he strikes me as kind of the money guy. He strikes me as the guy who wants to uh, cut cut a deal and make like set up integrations between companies, or to uh, to organize business strategy. He doesn't strike me as the type who comes along and says, "Oh, the solution to this problem is we got to get everybody on RCS," or how are we going to create a developer story where developers actually want to work on this thing or that thing. He does not seem like the type of person who thinks about that stuff. Even before he became CEO, he just did not seem like that kind of a mind. So yeah, I don't, like I said, I just don't particularly care for his style. Again, his personality doesn't really suit. Um, it doesn't really suit the presentations, so it's hard to tell if he has any opinions at all about Android, because it's hard to tell what he even has opinions about. Um, so yeah, trying to think, is there anything else that I'm forgetting? Did I miss something? Um, can't really think of much, and I'm skimming through really quick. Was there any other stuff that was announced that I'm missing? And I don't think so. Uh, or if I did miss something, it may not have been that big of a deal. So yeah, I think that is actually about it for today. Uh, so yeah, plan is for next week. Um, it's gonna be Corbin and I again. He's coming back on for that one. We're obviously going to be talking about Google I/O. I have a feeling it's going to go quicker. In fact, we may even want to go look for other topics to prepare for next week, because I think a lot of what we're going to talk about is pretty much just, hey, they just talked a lot about AI. It's a lot of things that developers can't use, and a lot of it will be flashy presentations for things that users may already have had, or will be slight upgrades to things users already had. That's uncertain. I don't want to completely pigeonhole it, because there's every possibility that they're going to have some really big, amazing things to show off. Um, but I'm not holding out any tall hopes on that. It could go so many different directions. Um, and then let's see. Well, may as well mention it. This weekend, I believe I'll be doing. Um, let's see. Do I need to do any Overwatch? I don't think so. I'll have to check later, but I believe I'll be doing Horizon Zero Dawn both days. At least reasonably likely I'll be doing Horizon Zero Dawn both days. Um, and yeah, so that's pretty much my plan for the weekend. And yeah, then the IO show. Then the next weekend, I think we'll actually probably be back to Overwatch for that weekend. I believe there's an event coming. I'm not quite sure. Uh, so yeah. Anyway, that about covers it. Um, I guess I will be doing the outro. Just making sure I'm not looking over one last thing just to skim over it and see, is there anything worth mentioning. I don't see anything though. Okay, so Let's see. I guess I will say thank you to everyone who came by and was part of the chat. Uh, or if you're just lurking and watching. Um, if you'd like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. And yes, I still need to fix the Streamlabs integration, so that one doesn't work at the very moment. Um, but I will get that taken care of. I know it's really easy to fix, but I need to do something with the PayPal account before I do. Um, let's see. And of course, huge thanks to supporters of the channel. Austin, David, Diablo, Carson, and Alyssa. Y'all are awesome human beings. Um, let's see. Oh, and of course, anyone who is doing any shopping on Amazon, uh, visit my website, codytoombs.com, where I've got a product recommendations page. Man, I start talking just a little too fast, and then the words just fall apart. Uh, anyway, if you click through a link on that page, there are affiliate codes attached to those. If you add something to your shopping cart and buy it, I get a little cut of that sale. It costs you nothing, and it does, in fact, help the site. So, with that, I'm going to take off. I hope everyone has an excellent rest of their week. I will hopefully be seeing everyone in Discord. I'm also catching up on reading through everything that was said yesterday in Discord, so I do have a little bit more to catch up on, but I'll be caught up on that fairly soon. Anyway, with that, good night, everybody.